喜欢它。
I'll do a very short introduction. So, Neil McFarland is the director of games at ustwo Games at ustwo, the studio in UK, and it's our honor to invite him to Taipei Game Developers Forum to do the keynote speech. And please give him a very warm applause and welcome him. Hello, good morning. Hello. Yes, my name is McFarland, and I'm from ustwo Games. And I think the reason I was asked to speak here is because we made a game called Monument Valley, which is very popular. Now I have some pictures, but I realised I can show you a trailer as well, which might be better. So without the, I'll just show you the trailer. No. Oh, really? Okay, we won't do that. Let's just show you some pictures. I don't know why that is. Anyway, yeah. This is Monument Valley, and it is a mobile game, a premium mobile game, and it deals with impossibility and illusion, and it's designed to be a very beautiful and meditative game, a very slow-paced game, in which you control this princess around these strange monuments and trying to figure out what she's doing there and completing the story. And so the game was designed to be a story and designed to be a complete narrative, and there are no. It was really designed to be a complete experience, which is why we chose from the very beginning to make it a paid-for game. And the reason that is important because today, what I want to talk about is. Is that there? So yes, what I want to talk about today is in relation to games is pacing and pricing, and what paying for a game can do and what it changes in a game. So yeah, what I'm going to talk about is the pace at which things happen when you play a game, and how that makes you feel when you're playing, and how the different speed at which things happen and the game asks you to do things kind of affects you, and how it affects the game and how you perceive it. And then obviously importantly for this audience is what that allows game developers to do and what decisions they make based on this idea of paying and freemium games. I'm also going to just briefly maybe ask the question of what is the point of video games, and ultimately what is the point of our meaningless lives. And maybe at the end of this talk you might feel like this. I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so it's important to think about the model of freemium and discuss the differences and essentially what does each model need from you. There is a relationship that each model has to develop with you, and they each need different things from you. So I'll start with freemium games. Freemium games need to do a few things. They need you to pay for them at some point, and they do this by asking you to pay for them or forcing you to wait. Of course, the intention is that you might, by waiting, you might pay later. The other way of, rather than waiting, they can ask you to say, hey, you don't have to wait, you can kind of grind at this and spend your time trying to achieve these things that the game offers. But really, again, it's about you paying later. This is their function. Or there is another method, which is they can actually ask you to market their game for them. It's very useful for a game developer, a game company to, if they can't make you pay for something, then at least you can be an advocate for the game and spread the message for them. So they give you lots of ways of doing that on social media. So if you're not paying, you can at least tell other people about the game and make the game bigger and the more users, then someone might pay. So how do we go about achieving this? And this is when I start talking about pacing. Freemium games, on the whole, need to start the experience and start their relationship with you as quickly as possible. They need to get you invested in their gameplay and get you to understand what's going on. And they kind of need to attempt to promote the feeling of kind of addiction and prevent you from, and once you are addicted and drawn in by this feeling of playing the game, they kind of need to then stop you from feeling that and make you, again, ask you to then pay for them. So they make you addicted and try and stop you satisfying that. And again, they can then offer this marketing route as well. If you're not going to pay, you can become an advert for the game as well. And then I'm going to talk about this later, but there are also some really innovative things that Freemium games do, kind of offering useless content. It doesn't really affect your progress in the game, but obviously costs money, and I'll discuss this later. Okay, so Freemium games. The first thing Freemium games need you to do is buy them. This is really important, and all developers should really make sure that this happens if they're making a Freemium game. So the other thing that Freemium games need you to do is enjoy them. You've already paid for them, so they've taken all the money they're going to get, really. So then really the experience is about delivering the message of the developer, delivering the experience, and giving you the content in a way that the developers really intended to. And then the other thing they would like you to do is to promote them. So promote them in a way that you would, if you feel like you've enjoyed the game, that you're then going to go and tell the people about them. For us especially, one of the biggest ways that we advertise the game, because we didn't spend any money on marketing, was just basically social media. So people would play the game and then say how much they liked it and tell other people to play it. And that's been our biggest method of spreading the word, really. And so how do Freemium games sort of achieve these goals? The really important thing is to get this initial promotion, and that's really from the store holders, from the store platforms, and of course any self promotion they can do. And if they can do advertising, that's good too. In our case, we couldn't afford to do that, so we did as much as we could on social media and built strong relationships with the store holders. And then after they've got promotion, they need to sort of try and succeed. This is a really big thing. They need to succeed as a rewarding experience to fuel this word of mouth, this ripple effect of telling other people that you liked it. I mean, that's really all we can do once it's been sold. There's not really anything else that's in it for the developer. It's like, here's my game, hopefully you enjoy it and you tell other people. And why am I talking about this? It's how does this affect pacing? This is really exciting. This is the King of Sweden, and he's really excited. Okay, so Freemium pacing. When you download a free game, it doesn't really have long to get your attention and have you invest in its gameplay. So immediately there's a pressure on the pacing of the Freemium game. It has to move quickly. And the reason that it has to move quickly is because you can just go and get another free game if you don't like it. if you download a free game, and you've got a very small window of making making a player make a decision about this game, because you know that they can always just say, oh, you know what, I'll just get another one for free. So what's in it for me? So the pacing is front loaded. And then after these opening moments, then the whole pacing then is about tempting the player to keep playing, which comes back to this idea of once you start playing, that you keep playing, and at some point you be tempted to buy something. So when we dig a little bit deeper, what effectively is a freemium game pacing? So a freemium game, if someone's never played your game before, you need to immediately set up the rules of the game. The players need to get their hands on the gameplay as quickly as possible and start to understand what's going on. They also need to consume like a whole game cycle really, really quickly, so they can say, okay, this game is about this thing, and I do this, and I understand how it works and what I'm going to do. And you find that the freemium games also need to start promoting the sort of more advanced features and tempting the player, saying, if you're interested in what's going on now, there's even cooler stuff coming. So they need to sort of start telling you that. They can't keep that secret. They need to immediately start telling you these things so that you might be more interested, even if you're kind of thinking, okay, this game's okay, you know there's something even cooler coming. So that means that freemium really has to rush to make this really big impression on you during the first play session. And it's fundamentally what a freemium game needs to do is kind of, it tends to overstimulate you and try and promote these feelings of reward in the brain, like get your brain to release endorphin and dopamine. It's kind of like a feeling of addiction that they want to achieve, so you feel this pleasure and keep playing it, and then they have this method of then when they prevent you from playing, you kind of feel a little bit, withdrawal symptoms, and again this means that you might be tempted to actually pay for more access to the game, and so this is how it all affects the pacing. And so let's move on to premium pacing. One thing that a premium game sort of has to do is that it has to kind of make the player feel like they made a really good choice. It needs to be rewarding immediately. It's slightly different, I feel, to freemium gaming, which is about trying to overwhelm you with kind of gameplay. A premium game doesn't necessarily have to rush like that, but it doesn't have to make you feel that the money you've paid is kind of worth it. So it has to make you feel like you made a good choice. And then after that, the developer needs to do just sort of a classic thing that all developers kind of aim for, which is to balance the game, to balance the experience, so that the player keeps feeling that they've made a good choice and is invested in carrying on playing. And so the pacing is then designed so that the gameplay can satisfactorily unfold in the manner that the developer intended. And you can still get this wrong. This is the kind of the crux of good game making, but that's really what it's all about. Yes, and so the developer then just needs to make this story arc engaging and get the players attached to it, and make them just continue to make them feel that what they bought is actually worth it. But the difference there, so crucially, the premium games have a greater choice about how they pace themselves, as they've already taken the payment. They're not rushing to try and force you to try and find some way of making you pay. They've already done that. You've already made that choice. So they're freer to make choices about how they present the content to the players, and therefore I feel they're also free to tackle themes that maybe would be destroyed by designing for a payment system, a microtransaction system. Lots of themes we wouldn't really suit that. So premium games, I feel, are capable of exploring all kinds of pacing methods that freemium can't, because essentially what they're trying to do is different. Okay. So there have been lots of words and no pictures, so I thought we'd just have a little rest now and show you a nice picture of the English countryside and I can have a quick game. So if you need to text anyone, you can do that. So, ways of paying and how that affects pacing. It's really exciting. Freemium games have, I just want to talk about the ways you pay because hopefully you'll understand that it affects pacing. So freemium games have many common ways to make you pay. I've touched on this before, but you pay or you wait. It can turn you into a marketing tool, or you pay in grind. But all of these methods, methods have in common that they inevitably have to stop the gameplay or slow it down at some point, because they're all aimed to effectively frustrate the player, so they pay. So the pacing is very quick, but then at some point the brakes have to be put on, or something has to happen to put something in front of the player to make them decide whether or not they are actually going to pay for the game, or try not to pay for the game. But as I said earlier, there are some really, really interesting ways I find fascinating about the way that freemium games can work. And obviously, because it's such a competitive marketplace, game makers are always trying to innovate different ways of making you kind of, give them money. So some games will tempt you to pay for this useless content that adds no advantage to play. But a tactic that for me at least, I often I'm kind of a sucker for this method. If a game is, I like the game and it offers me something that is just kind of cute and I just like, and the game is something I've already invested in emotionally, then I end up paying this way. And just examples of that have worked on me is the game Crossy Road, the characters in that, which are given to you freely and you earn them over time. But because they're so charming, I've ended up spending some money buying quite a few. And they don't really help me at all. They make the game look a little bit different, but they don't improve my skills or anything. And also the hat system in Team Fortress, again, doesn't really confer any advantage to the player, but it's just a really cool way of doing things, a really interesting way of doing things. I noticed that I might be a little bit Western-centric, and I think this is the first time I've been in Taiwan. I'm going to use this opportunity to learn a lot more about your gaming scene, so forgive me if I use lots of kind of Western examples. But this kind of innovative method requires high levels of emotional investment in the game. And again, as I say, that works on me. But they don't affect pacing. Because it kind of removes paywalls. It's like the game is there and you have this option of buying, but you never really get stuck. There's always a way around it, and it doesn't feel like you're being asked to wait too long. But there's this outlet, this way of giving money to the developer if you feel like you're getting a good experience. So these kind of freemium games tend to act like a premium game. As they don't feel like they're desperate for your money, you don't feel like there's a trick being played with you. Excuse me. So you seem to only pay because you like the game so much, and not because you are kind of seeking an advantage that is kind of required of you because there's something blocking you in another way. And I think that kind of in these innovative ways of raising revenue from freemium games, that kind of everyone wins. The developer wins, and the player wins. Premium games really don't have anywhere near the amount of levers to pull on this. They can offer downloadable content, more levels or something, once you've made the purchase. This is one thing we did. Rather than releasing a sequel to our game, the new content we put inside the original game and ask for more payment to receive more content. Another way, if the game is successful, is it can raise an extra, on top of the purchase price, you can try and raise money from merchandise. But as we've also found, you kind of need really huge volumes before you can either do it on your own, or if you want to get a license deal, then you need huge volumes, which is a big barrier. I mean, some examples. I mean, Angry Birds managed this, but they sold so many games. Or you can try and make spin-offs, film and TV deals, that if your game's kind of popular and you find a niche audience, you can maybe try and do something like this. And there are other interesting innovations, such as I like to think like Skylanders and like the Amiibo system are ways of premium content, adding extra value and finding new ways to sell things to players that are kind of innovative and offer something new. Small intermission. This is a tea room at Claridge. It's famous. I go there all the time. It's great. Okay. So I think I should maybe show some examples of pacing in games and how I think that they work. And again. So this, for me, is possibly the greatest example of really slow-paced gaming, and it points to what premium games can do, and paying for a game can do, which is Animal Crossing. I got this game and played it for over a year, every day for over a year, and I thought it was what was worth mentioning was the way it starts, because I'm going to particularly talk about the New Leaf edition of Animal Crossing. So when I went back and checked this, when you first play the game, it's about 4.5 minutes before you switch on the game, before you arrive at the town. So you're going to I spent a year in this place, but it took like 4.5 minutes of just chatting to another character. Which is a really clever way of designing what you look like, but I didn't know that at the time. But so you've got a whole 4.5 minutes of nothing really happening, and it's actually 6 minutes before you can actually move the character, which is a really long time. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, in the lifetime of the game, it's not. But imagine that on a mobile game where you have to sit for 4.5 minutes before you kind of see the game, or 6 minutes before you can do anything. I mean, it's a huge amount of time for a lot of players. But this is, I think this is because you've already invested, you've paid quite a lot of money for the cartridge, and you're invested in the whole experience. So you kind of don't mind, and you're invested in this purchase. So, and you kind of understand that it's slow, so you get into the rhythm, this slow rhythm. And I think that's what makes Animal Crossing great. And I knew that it's been a popular game for a long time, and this is the first version I played. And I kind of was a little bit worried. I didn't know how it would really work on me, it being really so slow. But yeah, I thought it was great. And so my second example is a game that I recently got on mobile, which is called Castaway Paradise. And this game is very, very... lots of the reviews and articles on this game talk about it being kind of Animal Crossing for mobile. And I read some of the developers' comments, and they said the same thing. So I just wanted to contrast that with this kind of 4.5 minutes, or 6 minutes before you can move in Animal Crossing, with how that works when it's turned into a freemium model on mobile. So in this game, within 30 seconds, I've kind of arrived on the island, I've picked up some trash and learned how to talk to characters. And then after 40 seconds, I've set up my character, I've chosen whether or not I'm a boy or a girl, and then within a minute I'm farming. And then if you contrast this to 6 minutes before I can even move in Animal Crossing. And then in 90 seconds, I'm learning about these sort of daily rewards, which this is what the point I'm making about freemium games. They're in this big rush to let you know some of the features that are coming, and so that you become invested in the system, and it starts hinting at what you haven't got yet, but what you can get. It starts planting these seeds in your mind about how good this game is and all the things you're going to be able to do. And then, so after 4 minutes, and again, this is still less time than it took me to even arrive in a town in Animal Crossing, is that I've harvested a crop, and I'm kind of, the game's already trying to turn me into a marketing tool, and it's saying, you know, why don't you share what's on your mind with your friends? And yeah, to be honest, you know, my mind was blank. I was like, oh, I don't know, nothing. I've done it, I don't know what's going on. So I just wanted to show this an example of almost the same game and how the different pricing models affect how that's delivered to you. And then just another example I wanted to show was just one, because it's quite an unusual example, is Half-Life 2. And Half-Life 2 is a first-person shooter. So first-person shooters, you have a gun, you shoot people, right? And again, I went back and sort of timed all this and found that in Half-Life 2 it takes you 18 minutes, before you get anything you can hit anyone with. So you've got this huge amount of time where, as the character, you're just kind of walking around a train station. But the interesting thing is you are kind of soaking up the atmosphere of the game and learning a little bit about the backstory, and kind of getting used to where you are. So yeah, and then it's 19 minutes before you get a gun, before you can shoot anyone, which is just a huge, huge amount of time for the genre. So yeah, first-person shooter game, you don't get a gun for 20 minutes. I mean, it's just a really good example of how pacing can be used in games. Yeah, just this whole thing about if you divorce the method of payment from the gameplay, you can do these things. You can have a huge swathe of time go past just to get people emotionally invested, because they've already paid. You're not going to ask them for any more money. And this is my house. I wish it was. All the houses in England are like this. So yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the pacing in Monument Valley. So we designed Monument Valley as a premium game. I'll come on to different models later. But what that meant was that we knew from the very beginning it was going to be a paid-for experience, and it meant that we could sort of then look at the game and invest the pace and emotion in it that we were trying to do. And we were after this kind of very meditative and relaxed experience, because we were trying to kind of make a game for people who didn't really play games very much. So we didn't want anything that was going to be kind of overwhelming or too stimulating, or really we didn't want anything that would put people off. That we wanted to draw people in slowly, so that they almost didn't realise they were playing a game until they were, deep into it. And it allowed us to have this very minimal tutorial. We weren't trying to explain too much. There's only certain things you can do in the game, but we were allowed to just go very slowly and teach things one step at a time. And the player isn't told what they're here for, what they're doing. They investigate and play with the levels, and slowly over time we try and unfold our narrative. We built a narrative, and we wanted people to experience the whole thing. But we didn't want to. We had the luxury, because once people have paid, you have this luxury of then doing that at your own pace. And so we were able to leave a lot of room around everything, a lot of room for the player to kind of create their own meaning almost, and add their own meanings to some of the things that were going on. We didn't have to overly sell the experience. We could have done, but that was what we were trying to achieve. And again, I think it's really important that was done sort of through an upfront payment, so people had taken that leap and decided to go into this experience. And just to go to kind of some specifics there, the first thing you do is kind of a prelude to the game, and it just teaches one game mechanic. It just teaches this idea that, two if you count moving. So just learning how to move either, to move the character around, and one interaction with the world. So you learn, but essentially you're just learning how to just touch the world. And then this is followed by a very long title screen. So again, it's quite a long time and a very slow opening. And then each new level is really just about adding one new small element to the gameplay, one new trick, one new example of impossibility, or one new interaction into the game. And what we would then try to do was we never repeated any type of play. We would add to our tool set, but rather than making because it's essentially a puzzle game, but rather than taking one kind of puzzle, then making like 10, 20 versions of that puzzle, we just did one and then moved on, created a new paradigm, a new way of doing things, always trying to vary what was going on. So, what if we had designed it as a freemium model? We probably would have done this kind of thing of making many more levels of less bespoke, less tailored content. We would take one idea and make several versions of it. We probably have made some harder levels as well. We actually found when making Monument Valley, it was kind of really easy to make very, very hard, well, just hard levels. It's kind of, once we knew what we were doing, we'd make a level and it was usually too hard to play or too hard for our audience. We wanted to make a very broad, appealing game. So we tested on lots of people, gamers and non-gamers, and if kind of non-gamers were getting confused or stuck, we just redesigned the whole puzzle to make it so they could pass it in a kind of reasonable amount of time. Lots of people suggested that we sort of do things. When people talk to us and said, you're crazy for making a premium game, you should make it free and then everyone will download it, and they suggested things like you could make the puzzles really hard and then charge people for hints. But that kind of would kind of break this experience. You know, the whole thing about Monument Valley is this you kind of have this very intimate relationship with it, and you get invested in it emotionally. So putting too much UI and talking to the player will kind of sort of ruin that experience. So yeah, it was never designed as a freemium game. But weirdly, MV is freemium in China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Yeah. So, which is quite a recent thing. We released it initially on Google Play as exactly the same on Android. It was just exactly the same as the iOS version. But we recently made a deal with iDreamSky to distribute in Asia, in China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. So yeah, it's kind of weird saying all this, and then we've done this. But it's not very good at being freemium. There's just kind of one paywall, and it's not being completely redesigned. When we were talking to iDreamSky, we really wanted to preserve as much as possible of the experience. I mean, at one point we talked with a different distributor about them paying us a quite large fee and then giving it away as like a marketing tool for their platform. But ultimately we didn't want to do that, and we found this was an interesting way of, well, I mean, why have we done that? I mean, we have, as I said already, this is a big learning experience for me to be here and understand more about your culture of gaming and understand a little bit more about how things work. So it was one of those things where we really didn't know what to do. We had very limited experience. So this is kind of an experiment, but whenever we talked about Asia and China and Taiwan and Hong Kong, and we saw that this was something we didn't want to do. We didn't know really what to do, so we had to take up the best advice of the people who were kind of here. And yeah, I don't really know what to expect, so it's very new for us, and so we'll kind of see what happens. I just thought I'd show a picture of what it looks like. Has everyone here, has anyone not played Monument Valley? If you haven't, then please, you can get it today. So play. Okay, I'm just going to sum up some of those things, so just some of the ideas around how we face it, starting with freemium. So yeah, I feel that freemium games are kind of in a rush. They're always in a rush to start because they have to try and hook you quickly. And they kind of have to overstimulate you in order to do this. They have to make you feel excited and want you to play and understand what's going on really, really quickly. They don't really have time they don't have time to take their time. They must put a lot of information in front of you very quickly. And therefore, they're paced with this really, really quick start. Because it's just the things they have to do. They're under so much pressure, because of so much competition, they have to do this. And then this tempo, this fast-paced tempo, is kind of only interrupted by these events that are designed to make you pay. It's nothing to do with the game design itself, I don't feel. It's to do with the model. So I like to. So what has this done to game design when designing a freemium game? What are you actually doing that's different maybe to a premium game? So what I suggest is that this payment model necessarily modifies the way the game is designed and paced. If there was no such thing as freemium, if games had to be paid for, then I feel that there would be the pacing wouldn't be affected in the same way, or at least not as much. I mean, there's still competition to get you interested in the game, but excuse me. But yeah, it's definitely, for me, I can see that it's affected the pacing of the games. And it's worth remembering that freemium games are kind of as much of a service as they are a game, because they require this relationship between the player and the service provider. It's like you kind of go into this free shop and you're with the shopkeeper and they say, yeah, take whatever you want. And then, but there's this relationship where at some point they kind of want you to pay for something. And this becomes like something they need to keep up. They need to keep people coming into the shop and keep people moving through, because some of them people will pay. It's not necessarily a one experience they can give and then just let you go away. They need to check in with you. They need to check that if you're paying or if you're not paying, check on if there's another way they can tempt you. And so, as a game designer, what does that mean? And so I just thought of a couple of questions that you need to consider when designing a game. You have to kind of decide, and this is what we decided, if we were going to make a game or effectively a service. We considered, before we started to make Monument Valley, we had a few ideas about what our next game would be, and looked at a freemium game model. We had an idea for a freemium game, and we looked at it, and we looked at the way that the sort of skills we would need to build it, and then the ongoing commitment to upkeeping that and running it. And we decided that wasn't for us. We're quite a small team, and we realised that wasn't for us. But I think as a game designer, you have to sort of understand that it's kind of a long-term thing. And if you have a sort of something you really want to achieve, some message or that you want to say with your game, you have to kind of understand how these two models are going to affect that message, how it can be destroyed or distorted, or how you might have to change it to fit into one or the other of these categories. So with premium, with a premium game, you're kind of emotionally invested in it before you even open it. I mean, this is kind of affected by price, and some price barriers are really, really low. So in US dollars, our game was $4. You know, it's not a 99-cent game. It's you have to kind of decide that you're gonna pay that much money for it. But what that meant was that people they kind of made an emotional, they'd made an investment already, so they'd already kind of crossed this threshold. They'd already made the choice to spend some time there, because there's this barrier that says, look, if you want to come and do this, it's going to cost you $4. So you know, there are other things you can do with that money. So if people had crossed that threshold, then they knew what they were in for, hopefully. So I think what that does is it gives the developer a choice for then how to pace the game. They've made a connection, and they can decide to take things slowly, and start giving the players surprises and deal with things that maybe they couldn't in another way. So this this pacing is dictated by a need to service the game design, the game message, and not the payment method. I think the payment method necessarily affects the game design. So the game design, if that's what you're trying to achieve, just this message or a mood or whatever it is, a premium game allows you to concentrate on that and to not then worry about these other ways, these other systems or other elements of your game that you have to build into it in order for it to be successful and to pay the bills. Okay, another slide. So, because you are a captive audience, you're a premium audience, you've already made an emotional investment to be here today. I'm going to talk about whatever I want, and you can't stop me. So, I kind of made this observation that gaming is kind of a cannibalistic entertainment medium. And what I mean by that is that many other kind of amusements that once had a fixed place in people's lives are kind of being consumed by the smartphone, the rise of the smartphone and the rise of mobile gaming. I notice this mostly if I'm ever commuting on the train. And so things like, before mobile phones, people would just, if they were on the train, they would be reading a book, or they would be using but specifically gaming-wise, they'd maybe have a newspaper and they would do the puzzles in the newspaper. And not so much crosswords. Crosswords is kind of a Western thing I've been led to believe, but I guess things like Sudoku or other puzzle games that are printed in newspapers, those were really the only gaming options people had before when they were stopping on public transport. And I used to be a cartoonist, used to draw comic strips, and I found that especially in the UK papers, there's very little space given to those now, and the quality for the ones that they don't seem to be valued. So I feel like mobile gaming is kind of also, people forget about these things, but maybe it's affected other kind of mediums as well. The other thing that mobile gaming has kind of done away with this idea of not doing anything, like just being alone with your thoughts and finding ideas coming into your head, rather than just kind of coming up with some strange idea, you're just kind of fixed on making these pieces of candy be the same colour next to each other. And I kind of think that's a bad idea. Or a shame, sorry. And daydreaming and thinking, again, they're being marginalised because there's all these things that are attacking your time almost. And I also think being bored is kind of really, really useful. Because sometimes when you're really, really bored, you have to amuse yourself, and so you kind of come up with great ideas for games, But if you're not bored, when do you have time to just let your mind relax? And I feel that's kind of what mobile gaming is kind of eaten into. And then mobile games also now expose us to other forms of amusements that were sort of historically less easily accessible, and I believe are sort of on the whole kind of undesirable. And that's things like slot machines. And I can pick on Candy Crush here, and it's kind of like a gambling machine, or where it kind of looks like the machines that used to be in bars that when I was growing up, with lots of flashing lights and things moving around and matching up. And that's kind of, but you had to go and seek them out. They weren't in your everyday life, but now they kind of are. And all these things, like gambling as well, they kind of be introduced to some of these games. And they weren't necessarily available to absolutely everyone before. You kind of had to be over 18 or really look for them. And I kind of would argue that some of these digital experience, especially some of the things that freemium games kind of do, is kind of like a drug experience. It's about stimulation and then addiction and withdrawal. So I just wonder how, as developers, we kind of feel about these things, these additions that mobile gaming has made to popular culture. Again, it's an open question. I don't know how you feel or how anyone feels. I just think it's also new that it's just kind of happening around us, but maybe we should take some time to think about it. Okay, so I'm kind of going to summarize There's lots of endings to this talk. So it seems to me that while many exciting, incredible new games have been spawned by the smartphone and by mobile gaming, many people are kind of using them just to kill time. They're just using them to fill in these moments which were previously reading or being bored or daydreaming, and now they seem to have have more trouble with dealing with those times, and they want something to fill them in. So with the freemium model is really supremely suited for this, for developers to exploit this human need to kind of kill time. Mostly because sort of freemium games are designed to never end, so there's an infinite amount of time you can play these things for. And they kind of balance to frustrate and block your progress until you pay with, so you pay with time. You know, you have time, you want to spend it, so you pay to these games. People are really willing to do that. They have this time that they want to get rid of. Yeah, the people seem to be a modern idea that people are trying to, they don't necessarily want to consciously inhabit the moment they're in. They're trying to fill their mind with something else to stop them thinking. I don't know what they're scared of thinking, but it seems to me that that's what's happening. And so people will spend money if they're frustrated by these progression blocks, and some people spend time to do the same thing. It's either money or time. Some people do both. Of course, premium games also fill in these same moments that humans cannot bear to experience. But my point, I think, is that this act of upfront purchase sort of opens up some different powerful possibilities for developers. So I feel like there's I'm saying a lot of things that maybe sound bad about freemium. There are some amazing freemium games, and they're really well made. It's not saying that they're bad, just trying to point out differences. But with a premium game, there's this chance that you can kind of craft an artful experience, a more in-depth experience, which would be otherwise impossible to do or convey these meanings or ideas, because there's this need to balance with this intermittent payment. So I think that it limits these possibilities because of the payment method. And that's because the player's already made an investment in your experience, and therefore they're prepared to accept a slower pace, kind of more challenging themes, and potentially deeper narratives, because they're already invested in it, and they haven't got this urge to just think, you know what, I'll just get another free game, right? This is too challenging. Final summary. Final. So this is if you're just trying to sum up all the things I've said. So the payment method changes the pacing of the game. And freemium requires a huge investment in things other than the actual gameplay to succeed. It requires user acquisition, paywalls, different mechanics and things that a developer has to think about, which is separate to the gameplay. I mean, if you're a good freemium developer, they kind of all become one, but it's kind of a thing that's not a game. It's this sort of other element to designing the game experience. It's not about the rules of the game, it's about the rules of the payment method. Freemium really just requires you to make a really, really good game to succeed. And that's not easy, of course, but it's kind of the only thing that you would be setting out to do. Also, games are a huge waste of time. You should go and learn to play the guitar or speak another language or something. It's a much better use of your time. That's my final. I should learn to play the guitar. My wife bought me a guitar and I haven't learned to play it yet. I should. That really is the final summary. I just wanted to leave you with a challenge and all these things I've been saying. And people talk about games as art and all these kinds of things. So I wonder, is it possible? Is it possible to make a freemium game that can be considered as a piece of art? So maybe that's my challenge to all of you guys. Thank you. I think now there's some time for questions. I will attempt to understand you.
所以现场有这个问题想要提问的，要提问给听友们，那就是请直接发问，我们会有就是翻译口译老师直接帮你翻译的问题给变成英文这样。啊，机会难得。Joe, do you have a question?
And they don't, maybe they complain because the content wasn't free. They kind of, do you think it's because they expected it in other games? Is maybe even starting to color how they might otherwise have been perfectly happy to pay $2 for some new levels in a nice game?
I think the answer to that is yes. I think it's not just games though. I think it's the whole of society that are expecting more and more for free. Because sometimes even with TV or something that you might pay a subscription, but you don't really notice that. So it's become a norm to feel like things are very small payments or no payments at all. And yes, in our case, there was some people who couldn't believe that we were charging for the game, or couldn't believe we were asking them for something, for some more money. And we still get these really strange emails where people will say, "Hey, I really liked your game. I played the whole thing. You know what? I'm just going to delete it now. Can I get my money back?" I mean, it's like, it feels to me like they bought a sandwich and they ate the whole meal, and then they said, "Yeah, I've finished now. Can I have my money back?" So I feel it has affected games and maybe the whole of society. Yeah, definitely. This culture, this freemium culture has affected a lot of things. Yeah. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Hi, my name is Michel. I'm actually coming from France.
Oh,
So, what you say think about the Western stuff, I understand. The thing actually, by listening to you and by watching, comparing freemium to premium games, we end up maybe discussing again about what is a casual gamer compared to a gamer. Because the casual gamer, as you said, spend time. It doesn't spend creativity. It's not about gameplay, actually. It's about spending time. Whereas a gamer is usually about gameplay and what's new, what's innovation. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think part of this whole thing is that the other part of mobile gaming is that it's put gaming into the hands of people who just weren't doing it before. And so I think you're entirely right. You've got these people, and this is something we were trying to achieve with Monument Valley, was to try and get to people who had maybe not played games before, and show them. And this is kind of what we feel like we wanted to achieve with all our games now, is this idea that there's gaming has been around for years, and people who like to play games, and we absolutely love games and all the things they do, all the mechanics, all the tropes, all the cool things that we enjoy from games. And then there are all these huge amounts of people who maybe have not experienced that before, but suddenly they have these amazing computers in their pockets that can do all these things. But they don't really know what to do with them. I mean, the stores have this terrible job of trying to educate people. And so they have this really hard design decisions to make about what to promote to people. Whenever I'm out on trains or planes, I look at what people are playing, and it's 90% of the time it's those one or two games that have become hits. I was on the plane and someone was playing Angry Birds. But I kind of watched the way they were playing it, and I think he looked through his iPad and you could tell that he didn't really have many games or really know what to do in terms of he didn't know how to find a new game. But he heard that Angry Birds was a good game, so he played that. And you could tell he wasn't really enjoying it. I mean, he must have played it thousands of times and he was kind of really bored about it. But you're really kind of pointing out what's important here, is that there's lots of people who have never played games before and now have this opportunity to. And especially if something's free as well. Well, why wouldn't you pick that one? I don't understand what this game is and you want $4 for it. Oh, well, I'm not going to do that. It's huge. It's kind of, you have to make an educated choice, and if you're not educated, then you can't make that choice very easily. So yeah, I think that's an issue for the whole industry. So how do you get people to be slightly more educated about what games are and what they can do? And yeah, I think that's our challenge going forward.
是纪念碑谷的忠实玩家。我想问一下，纪念碑谷当初在制作这个游戏的时候，是不是一个白日梦在发想的过程？那这个过程，这个有没有一些内幕可以告诉我们？我们想多听一点纪念碑谷当初怎么起来，大家怎么一起讨论，然后为什么想要做这样的游戏？然后第二个问题就是说，在这个起源的过程之中，你们是已经完全已经有这样，目前像今天演讲的主题一样，都已经有这种概念。这个概念是来自于过去其他制作游戏的经验的累积，还是说你们制作完之后才发现，这些游戏跟免费游戏的那个节奏有非常大的不同？这个过程让我多了解一点。谢谢。
So when we came up with the idea of Monument Valley was, we had a few ideas. It wasn't, just to put it into context, the team, our games team had changed a little bit just before Monument Valley. We had half the members were new. So we finished our previous two games. The two games we made before, we made a game called Whale Trail, which was an endless runner. That came out as a premium game, 99 cents. Because that was a model of Angry Birds, and that was a successful model. And interestingly, the model changed during the lifetime of that product, so we redesigned it as a freemium game, and got lots more downloads. Not as much revenue, but it made the life of the game longer. And then we did a puzzle game, a very kind of hardcore puzzle game. Very, very minimal graphics, which didn't do very well. But if you were particularly interested in puzzle games, it's pretty good. It's called Blip Blow, if you want to look for it. And then how we came up with Monument Valley was really looking for new ideas, and we had a couple of freemium games that we designed and decided that we weren't really sure about going forward with those. And then there was one piece of artwork that our lead artist, Ken Wong, created, which was just a kind of, if you draw in isometric, it always kind of looks cool. But you design this building, and there was just like a figure at the bottom. And it kind of looks exactly like the game looks in its final form. So we just saw this picture and went, oh, that looks cool. We don't know what the game is, but if we can make a game that looks kind of as cool as that, then great. And so it's just this one piece of inspiration, and we tied that together with the ideas of the impossible, because isometric drawings allow you to do because there's no perspective, it then suggested the idea that we could make optical illusions. So we had this beautiful artwork which suggested optical illusions, and then we saw some MC Escher work that kind of solidified that idea. And then we had the game concept, so it's kind of really, we were really lucky, I think, to find something so simple that we could work on. It's been very hard to come up with another idea, because that one was so easy to come up with.
So, sorry, because we actually run out of time. 对。因为我们就是表定时间这场到这个时间范围为止，那很抱歉我们没有办法再接受更多的问题。不过讲师呢，就是在今天这段时间内都会在现场附近。那如果你有任何问题想要问的话，就欢迎就是直接跟讲师来私下交流。好，那我们再次掌声这个感谢。